Hey y'all, and welcome back for another What's New on Netflix episode of Flick Connection. Here in February, they're actually adding a bunch of romantic movies and movies for the kids, but I'm gonna tell you about everything else I think that's interesting coming to Netflix this month. Don't worry, I'll touch on a couple of the romantic movies and some of the animated stuff for the kids, but for the most part, we're gonna be talking about stuff I wanna talk about. For instance, sometime in February, they're gonna be adding Venom: The Last Dance. This is the third installment in the Venom movies. Even though I'm not a huge fan of these PG-13 Venom movies, I'm still gonna check this one out on Netflix whenever they do release it. Odds are they're keeping this one back for kind of a surprise release at some point. But on February 1st, they're adding Parasite, the Oscar award-winning movie, a rare situation where a movie actually deserved all of the awards it got. If you've never seen it, it's just a completely clever Hitchcockian style thriller that feels fresh and new the way Hitchcock movies likely did back when they released. I mean, it's loaded with twists and turns, but not the type that you can see coming. It's a very different type of movie, and I loved the way all the mystery sort of revealed itself in Parasite.
제시카 외동딸 일리노이 시카고 과선배는 김치모 그는 이사촌.
If that's not your kind of thing, they're adding American Renegades on the 1st, a special ops modern warfare movie. J.K. Simmons actually stars in this, but it is kind of a straight-to-video type of release.
I think I'm invincible. I don't think I can die. Let me. It's not the smart idea. What?
The Nice Guys is one I highly recommend. This stars Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. They're both hilarious in it. This is from the same writer as Lethal Weapon, and it's got a lot of similar qualities, with kind of a cool 70s vibe at the same time. I'm telling you though, Ryan Gosling is absolutely hilarious in this movie, and not just with one-liners either. Like, the physical comedy in The Nice Guys is outrageous, making it one of my top recommendations for the month.
Look away. You know there's a mirror here, right? What do you want?
For a classic dramedy that actually stars Adam Sandler, they're adding Spanglish.
Do you really think that cupping my breast is going to solve the issue here?
It's worked before.
And One Piece returns for a new season. Now, that's the anime series, not the live-action Netflix original. They are making a second season of that, but we gotta wait a bit longer for season 2. For horror fans, they're adding It. They recently had It Chapter 2 on. It is now gone, and now the first chapter's on. It's a weird way to go about it, but they're adding it, along with Cult of Chucky, the latest Chucky movie, or at least the latest in the original series with the original Chucky.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Interestingly, they're adding Home Improvement seasons 1 through 8. I grew up watching this show with my family. Not sure if I'll watch this with my kids, but that's definitely what they're adding it for. And because it's February, like I said, they're adding some romantic movies like The Wedding Planner and 2 Weeks Notice. For the kids, they're adding Happy Feet 1 and 2, which are absolutely just like fantastic musicals, and that's coming from someone who's not a musical fan, but all of the song choices are just fantastic, and they're really dazzling movies. Believe it or not, these movies were created by George Miller, who's most famous for creating the Mad Max saga, and he actually brought kind of this grand scope and scale from Happy Feet to the new Mad Max movies.
Perhaps I could be of some assistance.
They're also adding the original Space Jam starring Michael Jordan, which is still an absolute blast to watch with the kids, and a Macaulay Culkin classic with Richie Rich. Speaking of Macaulay Culkin, his brother is actually nominated for an Academy Award for his latest film titled A Real Pain, a movie that I have reviewed in this week's newsletter. That's going to be coming out on Friday, and there's still time to sign up if you're catching this video early. My newsletter is totally free to sign up. I hold on to all your information and don't let anybody get to it, and I email you once every Friday with 5 movie recommendations, typically things I've seen recently. Anora and Nosferatu were both on last week's email, so if you want my thoughts on some newer releases, movies that I don't necessarily talk about here on the channel, definitely scan this QR code and sign up for that newsletter. But on February 2nd, they're bringing back The Founder. Now, they had this on the platform for quite a while, but if you missed it, this is the true story of Ray Kroc, the co-founder of McDonald's, the guy who essentially stole it from the McDonald brothers, and this movie shows how all of that works, and it comes from an interesting point of view. The movie itself is not really judging some of his business decisions, it's just kind of displaying them and how everything played out. I found it to be really interesting, whether you're a big fan of McDonald's or not. Now, February 5th is probably the most interesting day of the month, not necessarily with the best additions, but it's got the most interesting things on it. Things like Celebrity Bear Hunt. This is Bear Grylls' new show where he's actually hunting down celebrities. Now, I don't really recognize any of the celebrities, but that's not really the point here. The point is he's doing this manhunt game with some people who really don't have any business being out in the wilderness. So that should be a lot of fun. If that's not for you though, Amy Schumer has a new movie where she pretends to be pregnant, titled Kinda Pregnant, that also premieres on the 5th. And then we've got a creepy sci-fi movie from Germany titled Cassandra. This supposedly takes place in Germany's oldest smart home. So it's kind of this mid-century smart home with one of the first AI assistants ever created, named Cassandra. She looks really creepy, and the movie's got a bizarre vibe to it. And there's a lot of movies about these AI assistants gone rogue. I mean, I just recently talked about the Megan Fox one titled Subservience, also available on Netflix, but this one, with its retro vibe, has me interested. And then also on the 5th, a mini-series from Mexico titled Prison Cell 211 is a 6-episode series based on the story of a real prison riot where a lawyer was actually trapped inside of a Mexican prison during a riot where he has to pretend to be one of the inmates and his darker side comes out. Now, this is only 6 episodes, but it's based on a true story that took place in 2022 near the Mexico border, and it stars Diego Calva, who starred in the movie Babylon with Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie. He was one of the main characters in that movie, and he was an unknown. So it was very interesting that he starred in that big movie, and then it's got me interested to see what he does next, and this is it. On the 8th, they're adding Spencer. This is the movie where Kristen Stewart plays Princess Diana. It's just an all-out drama. It's not one I've seen, but it's relatively well reviewed. And then on the 9th, they're adding the cult classic comedy Uncle Drew.
Oh, come on, Jay! No, 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 no!
I get buckets. Shut up, old man.
On February 10th, they're adding Rambo, the one from 2008 where he's in Burma. This is a brutal Rambo movie. Now, I'm a huge fan of the original movie, and while the later ones are really nothing like the original, they're still successful at being kind of insanely badass action movies, which includes Rambo Last Blood, the final one that he did. Again, silly, quite a bit over the top, but in a totally entertaining way. Not really very connected to the original thematically, but still a gem of a badass action flick. Also on the 10th, they're adding a new docu-series titled Surviving Black Hawk Down. This actually comes from Ridley Scott's production studio. If you don't know, he directed the original Black Hawk Down movie. Now, back when that released, there was a documentary that was a little more based on the book, and I loved it. I thought it was an excellent documentary. It'll be interesting to see if this new Netflix one brings anything new to light, but even if it doesn't, if it just retells the story in a more modern way, I'm here for it. It is a harrowing story. On the 11th, we've got another one of my top picks for the month. Peninsula comes to Netflix for the first time. This is the sequel to Train to Busan, one of the highest rated movies here on Flick Connection. I don't know how many times I've recommended Train to Busan. It is a zombie flick from South Korea. It is amazing. It is also getting added back to Netflix on February 11th. But the sequel, Peninsula, is a fantastic zombie flick. Now, I will say, I don't think it is a great sequel to Train to Busan. It doesn't piggyback off of the original movie very much at all. It just takes place in the aftermath of that zombie outbreak, which is good enough for me. Like I said, it is a great zombie flick from South Korea. It just doesn't have any of the same vibe of Train to Busan. So if you've never seen the original Train to Busan, I highly recommend checking it out. Like I said, it's getting added back on the 11th. But if you have followed my recommendation in the past and you have seen Train to Busan, definitely check out Peninsula, again, on the 11th. On the same day, they're adding an animated Witcher spin-off. This is The Witcher, Sirens of the Deep. Now, this should still appeal to Witcher fans, even if you don't like the adult animation stuff Netflix has been putting out. It looks beautiful, and story-wise, it should connect to the Witcher universe perfectly. Still on the 11th, Felipe Esparza has a new comedy special. He is just a wild man. He doesn't even have to say anything funny to make me laugh. I mean, I just love listening to this guy talk, but on top of that, he actually is really funny. So this is the special I'm looking forward to this month. At the time of me posting this, I'm this close to reaching 600,000 subscribers. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed, and if you'd like to squeak in as one of my first 600,000, you got minutes to do so. Maybe hours. And then, I didn't know this, but on the 13th, Cobra Kai returns for Season 6, Part 3. I don't know why they're breaking it up that much, but Cobra Kai is coming back. They hadn't quite wrapped this thing up yet. According to IMDb, Cobra Kai has been running since 2018. I had no idea it's been running that long. Now, on the 13th and 14th, they're adding a bunch of romantic movies. They all, to me, they look like Hallmark Channel movies. It's hard for me to tell the difference. There was nothing that actually stood out as something really unique to grab onto, but they are bringing back Love is Blind Season 8 on Valentine's Day this year.
You will see what I see. And that's money.
Gold returns on February 16th, a fantastic movie starring Matthew McConaughey as a gold prospector. While this movie's not nearly as lively as The Wolf of Wall Street, I mean, movies rarely are, I would say fans of The Wolf of Wall Street would get a big kick out of this one. I loved this movie. If you just need some late night laughs, they're bringing back Ted 2 as well. On the 19th, they're adding a serial killer movie I've never seen before. It's titled To Catch a Killer. This actually stars Shailene Woodley and Ben Mendelsohn. It's got decent reviews, so fans of the genre, this should be well worth watching. But on the 20th, they're bringing back a Nazi hunter movie starring Ben Kingsley and Oscar Isaac that I thought was great, titled Operation Finale. This actually shares a lot in common with the Steven Spielberg classic Munich. Not quite as action-packed as Munich is, it's fairly slow-paced, but has a lot of interesting elements and dialogue, and there's one long, kind of prolonged sequence between Oscar Isaac. He's playing the spy who's hunting down Adolf Eichmann, who's played by Ben Kingsley, who was like the architect of the Holocaust. And Melanie Laurent from Inglourious Basterds is appropriately cast in this as well. Again, fairly slow pace, but if you like realistic spy movies, this is a great one. On the 20th, they're adding another limited series. It's only 6 episodes. It's titled Zero Day, and Robert De Niro is playing the President of the United States amid a cyber attack, with another cyber attack on the way. Now, this comes from one of the main creators of the series Homeland. Interestingly, it's not one of the writers, but it's the woman who directed the bulk of the Homeland series. She wrote and directed this. And it looks like it explores like the true side of conspiracy theories and the manipulative side of them and the future of cyber warfare. There's a lot of elements wrapped up into this one. It could be excellent, and it also could be pretty ham-fisted. We're gonna have to wait and see. On the 25th, they're adding a creepy one starring Maika Monroe titled Watcher. In this movie, from her apartment, she notices that someone's like watching her all the time. That's the basic setup, and the movie's surprisingly chilling as a result. Now, I will say this one feels kind of like an Alfred Hitchcock movie, but not in the way I normally describe them. This one actually feels like an old classic Alfred Hitchcock movie. It's got a bit of a dated vibe to it. It too is pretty slow paced. So it doesn't feel fresh or cutting edge, but if you like moody thrillers like this one, and if you're a fan of Maika Monroe like I am, then this one's well worth checking out. Now, before showing you everything leaving at the end of the month, so you can be sure to catch those titles before they're gone, on the 28th, they're actually giving us some really great movies to watch with the kids with Despicable Me 4, the latest one in the series. It came out in theaters this summer, and Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which honestly is like a fantastic action-adventure movie for the kids. They don't make a whole lot of these anymore. It's like either animated movies or super violent superhero movies. This fits kind of in the middle, and it's really funny, and I'll say, Jim Carrey is really fantastic in these Sonic movies. Like, he's embodying old school Jim Carrey, like the Jim Carrey everybody loved from The Mask and Ace Ventura. I mean, he's doing a lot of physical comedy in these movies as well, so if you grew up on him like I did, it's well worth checking these movies out with your kids. But here is everything leaving Netflix in the month of February. If you're new to the channel, welcome, but make sure you watch the movie prior to the date I'm showing you, because it's gonna be gone when you wake up on that day. But that is the list. Don't forget to sign up for my free email newsletter if you like getting movie recommendations. But I'll keep making these videos as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this Netflix episode, and you will see me on the next one.